potential. Having been an emergency room physician for over 12 years in some of the state's largest and busiest ERs, she became frustrated knowing there must be more treatments available and more things that can complement or enhance traditional Western medicine to optimize health. Dr. Harry believes integrative holistic medicine is the best way to do so, where the focus is on optimizing health, not the absence of disease. It achieves a natural balance that supplies the body what it needs to achieve balance and augments and accelerates the healing process. It does not replace or reject mainstream medicine, but takes a complete approach to health, acknowledges the mind-body connection, and views the relationship between physician and patient as a partnership and an important part of the healing process. Today, Dr. Harry will be speaking to us about 8 simple ways to help you feel younger. Please help me welcome Dr. Eudene Harry.
Louder, louder.
Hello everybody, how are you doing today? Everybody looks young already, so I guess we're good right there, right? Okay, we're actually going to reduce it to 6 steps because apparently my time is a little bit limited, so I guess you're cheated out of 2 steps, right? Okay, so I'm going to call it then 6 secrets to looking and feeling younger and kind of stepping into a new you, right? The first thing we're going to do is talk about things that could secretly be sabotaging your health, because we know those things are out there. We're going to tell you why these things are so damaging to your body, and then we'll give you some ideas on how to fix them. We're going to really try to keep it simple. It's things that you have and you do every day. The first thing that can sabotage health, we know, is stress, right? Stress has a huge impact on our health. The Center for Disease Control tells us that stress is responsible for 75% of doctors' visits. So in some way or another, 75% of visits to your physician is secondary to stress. What is stress? Well, stress induces that fight or flight response that we talk about. So for example, if you're driving down the street, somebody runs out in front of you suddenly, you want to be able to respond quickly to that, and that ultimately is what stress was designed for. However, if you have prolonged stress, then that can kind of start interfering with the function of the body. It can increase 2 primary hormones called cortisol and adrenaline, okay? So, well, what does cortisol do? Well, UCLA tells us, that's the University of California, it tells us that chronic exposure to cortisol can actually kill your cells a lot faster. It damages the end of the cells called telomeres. Now, those of you who listen to the health news, you might be hearing a lot about telomeres and how they help our cells. They protect our cells at the end of our cells and protect them from being damaged and keep them younger. Well, excess cortisol can damage that. Those of you who are also into health can hear things about, there's a supplement out there now that's being touted as the newest anti-aging thing. I think it's called TA65. It's just an herbal extract, but it's being sold for about $600 a month, and it's being touted as something that can protect your telomeres. I say that the science doesn't support that yet, but the thing that you can do is manage your stress levels. The other thing that the Journal of American Cardiology tells us is that stress increases our risk of sudden death and heart attacks. And many of us are not aware of that. It may be secondary to spasming of the arteries in the heart. It may be secondary to actually increase inflammation in the vessels of the heart. Then that can then lead to heart disease. Robert Wood Johnson, they did a study that shows it increases weight. So many of us are overweight secondary to stress. Actually, it's part of their weight reduction program is that you must also enroll in stress management program. That's how important it is. It actually damages the brain cells. So there are cells in the brain that are responsible for memory, and the cortisol hormone can actually destroy those brain cells. And my clicker stopped working. How about that? So the other thing that stress can do, it can also increase your risk for Alzheimer's disease, for those of you who are not aware of that as well. And that could be secondary to the hormones as well. Stress can do that. Not really sure why this is not working. Okay. Now, Stanford University, for those of us who don't care about the inside, let's talk about the outside, for example. Stanford University tells us that excess cortisol actually increases acne on the skin. So many of us, we have acne when we're children. Did you also notice? I don't know. Nobody's over 40, I'm sure. But when you hit 40, you also might notice that you start having some SX breakout as well. Stress might be responsible for that, secondary to the cortisol level. The dermatology journals tell us that actually stress can damage the cells to the point where you actually start accelerating wrinkle formation on the face. So that's how, and then so of course you start looking older and you start sagging a little bit. So what can you do about stress? Any ideas? How do we manage stress? With a with karate, yeah, with a Powerball. Well, University of Maryland says that actually listening to your favorite songs is a great stress reducer, and I think we already know this. But they have done some actually interesting studies with that. They're showing that actually some internal changes that happens with stress management as well. So blood vessels start relaxing, and then therefore blood pressure will start going down. Interestingly, what they noted though is that if you listen to that song over and over and over again, it kind of loses its effect. So it's something that you already know, I'm sure. So the Mayo Clinic feels so strongly about stress management that it's actually a part of their heart healing program. Because they found that, of course, stress contributes to heart disease. So even somebody who's looking to prevent heart disease or someone who's already had a heart attack, they actually use the music program to help with stress management. So you can manage stress also with something we call progressive relaxation. Does anybody know what that is? Okay, so progressive relaxation is very simple for those of us who don't know, and I'm going to really try to oversimplify things, is that tensing a particular muscle and then relaxing it. For example, the easiest muscle to really tense right now is the muscle in your face. If you clench your cheeks really tightly and grit your teeth, a lot of us do that. We wake up when our jaws are really sore, we don't know what happened there, and we're wearing our teeth down. If you do that and then relax them and take a deep breath, you'll absolutely notice the difference immediately. There are numerous studies done on deep breathing exercises and stress management, and the yogis can tell us all about that. Many people do biofeedback and neurofeedback. There are really some nice games out there that you actually progress along in the game by how relaxed you are. So a good one to look up is called Journey to the Wild Divine. That's a very nice game to look at. And we also, the other thing that we know that stress does, because we frown and clench our face all the time, is that it's going to leave us with a lot of those lines on our face that we really don't like so much. The other thing that we can do is to shed unwanted pounds so you can decrease inflammation. 63% of American adults are overweight. 95% of people who lose weight will gain it back. That doesn't say a lot for us, does it? We have the most diet plans than any other nation, I think. We've got the low carb, we've got the low fat, we've got the high protein, we've got the cabbage, we've got the cookie. We have all sorts of diet. Yet we are really competing to become the most overweight nation in the world. The Virginia Polytechnic Institute actually points out to us that when we follow a diet that eliminates certain types of foods, it can actually increase inflammation for us. So for those, they particularly looked at the low carb diet, and they actually found that inflammation in the body increased as opposed to decreased with that diet. Some studies also says that a low carb diet makes us kind of cranky. So nobody wants to be around somebody who's dieting. Have you ever been around somebody who's dieting? It's not very pretty. So then, what is the issue with being overweight? Well, it's not just that we want to look good in a bikini, that doesn't hurt, but basically what it is that being overweight creates inflammation in the body. And the fat cells themselves, we think of fat cells as just kind of lying there and just being unattractive. Well, they do a lot more than that. They actually start creating some substances that can inflame the body. So that inflammation can increase the risk of heart disease, increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease that most of us are concerned about, and significantly increase the risk of cancers as well. I don't think many people are aware of that. It makes us look older, The inflammation can attack the collagen in our skin. Well, collagen is kind of like the scaffolding that holds our skin up so that we look nice and young and plump. Well, it damages the collagen in the skin almost as much as sunlight does. And so then that increases the risk of wrinkles in the face as well. So inflammation can be made worse by eating the wrong types of foods, smoking, pollution in the air, and then fat itself contributes to that. So, what do you do about excess inflammation? Well, think about it this way. When we eat on a daily basis, we're actually creating inflammatory substances. It's like, for example, when a car is driving and moving, it's creating excess heat, but there's a mechanism in place that counteracts that heat so that your car doesn't blow up and start smoking. It's kind of like the same thing in the body, and we call those things free radicals. It's primarily what we call them. So how do you decrease free radicals? You start with eating the right types of foods. Hippocrates tells us, let food be your medicine, and medicine be your food. And basically, my interpretation of what he meant by that is that food is the foundation of everything. And foods can hurt you, or foods can help you. So when you're eating a lot of sugars are inflammatory, they decrease your immune response. So not only do you gain weight, but you also get sick a lot more frequently, and then you're increasing your risk of certain types of diseases as well. You want to eat foods that will calm down that inflammation or cool down the overheating that your body is doing when it's processing these foods. So you want to do things like vegetables and fruits, and I know we've heard this before, but it really is important to do that as well. You want to choose foods that are nutrient dense. That means that you don't want foods that are calorically dense, because you can have a food that's 2,000 calories, but it has no nutrients in it whatsoever. So you want to choose foods that are nutrient dense, but not as calorically dense. And by that, it's very simple. I mean, and you've heard this before, you know it, but I'm going to repeat it again. You want to lose lean meats for your proteins. You want to have fats. Please do not go on a no-fat diet, because that's actually a highly inflammatory diet, because fats are very important in keeping that inflammation down. But you want to choose the right types of fats that you're eating. So you want to choose fats such as omega-3 fats, even some omega-9s, even some omega-6s are important as well. So things like avocados, my favorite, but everybody hates it, sardines, very good. Tuna, nuts. The problem with nuts, though, is that we tend to eat too many of them. If we have a big pack of nuts, we're going to eat the whole thing. So just try to do a handful, and don't pretend that your hands are big as a basketball player's, because they're not. You just want to lay them out on your palm, okay? And that's really what a handful of nuts is. And of course, you want to have carbs, and the carbs should just be high in fiber, like the other physician spoke about, because you want to have fiber in your system as well. And fiber does quite a bit. It does bulk up the stool, and you are able to keep your bowel movements normal. But actually, there are studies that are showing that fiber can actually prevent cancers as well, based on the fact that the bacteria in the gut that are actually working on the fiber in the gut produce certain substances that can be preventative. Now, if you're eating, for example, foods that are charred and foods that are deep fried, those same bacteria produce other substances, and those can actually increase the risk of cancer. So fiber goes a long way. So what are some of the benefits that you can have from eating well? Of course, we all want younger looking skin, but the things that you might notice when you start cleaning up your diet, you might start becoming less achy and less like, you get up out of bed and you're like, oh my God, I can't do this hurts, you know, and everything hurts, and it's like, oh, my knee, and you start thinking, well, I'm getting older. Well, yeah, we can't do anything about that, but you don't necessarily have to feel that way. You, of course, can experience your new, younger figure that you want to flaunt everywhere. That's really why most of us go on a plan. But you also want to reduce the risk of cardiac disease and diabetes and cancers and Alzheimer's and all those things. Because living younger is really about what you do to take care of yourself. So your goal should not only be just to lose weight, although that's a nice incentive, but it should also be to get healthy as well. The next thing that we want to talk about is balancing your hormones. Now, when I say hormones, many people start thinking about the sex hormones, the estrogen, testosterone. They get hot, they get flashy, they're irritable. Those hormones are important, but I'm talking about all hormones. I'm talking about thyroid hormones. I'm talking about insulin hormones. I'm talking about adrenal hormones. All of those hormones are important.